Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with bestselling author, professional coach, and founder of iSpark Change, Rick Ornelas. He teaches individuals to expand their social impact and spread positive change around the world. Rick wasn't always interested in helping others on a global scale despite being pushed repeatedly in that direction by a near-death experience, family tragedies, and deaths. It wasn't until the ever-worsening times of 2020 when he was anxious, isolated, and desperate that he finally got the wake-up call. Enjoy the full story.
Excellent. Hey, thank you for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure.
So before we get into your life, I want to know, the last 3 years with COVID worked its own little way on all of us. And I'm curious how you survived that 3-year pandemic period now that we're kind of waking up and things are coming back to life, and how it's changed the way that you live your life and conduct business now.
Well, that's a big question. I'd say, Joe, that the way it changed was, it was a rough start when quarantine went into effect, and I lost that sense of control that we all feel that we, like to hang on to, and then quickly realized, that I had zero control, and my business slowed down. Revenue decreased to almost nothing. I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage, feed my family, was very fearful of the future. I became anxious and worried and went into kind of a dark place for a short time. And then I realized I knew better and I needed to focus on others and not focus on myself. So I started doing some volunteer work and looking for ways to help others that were struggling, far worse than I was. And I kind of inspired myself to start writing. So I wrote a blog about using the time as an opportunity to help others, be grateful. And then I wrote a book that had been in my head for 20 years. And that became my book, 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World, which was, I wrote in under 3 months and published in 5. And that set me on a journey for the next few years of just looking to serve others and give as much as I can and connect with people from all over the world and create iSpark Change, which is my organization to empower others to elevate their social impact and spread positive change. And that all came just from me being in that bad place in the pandemic. And so for the last 3 years, I've just been building iSpark Change, growing it, supporting others, working on myself, and doing a lot just to try to make that dream a reality.
Well, you did a lot of good work over that time, it sounds like. I'm curious to get to the essence of exactly what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids at a grade school for a career day, let's say second, third graders. And one of them looks up and asks you, what do you do for a living? How would you answer them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say in the simplest form, I make people better. And I do that by being an ultimate success coach and the founder of iSpark Change. And through my coaching, I work with entrepreneurs and business owners on helping them to create more impact and grow and scale their businesses. And through iSpark Change, I share motivation and positivity and inspiration through social media and through various platforms and through our community to empower individuals to have more impact and to spread that positive change. And so all of that would say, I tell them I love what I do every day, and I would say that I don't even see it as work. I see it as my duty and as my gifts that I get to share with others.
When you were a kid, what was your dream growing up? What did you want to grow up and become?
Probably 20 different things. I remember being young and thinking, I want to be a doctor. Kind of like it's a dream for a lot of kids. I want to be a doctor, and then I wanted to be a pilot for a long time. And when I entered college, I didn't want to go to like flight school, and at that time I wanted to go to university. I wanted to go to USC. I grew up in Los Angeles and wanted to go to USC, and my grandfather had gone there, and some of my siblings had gone there, and it was kind of a lifelong dream. So that's what I was focused on, not necessarily on what I was going to do. It was just that. And then I thought, I'll go into aerospace engineering, and that'll give me a foundation for being a pilot. And I had to withdraw from my first class because I was like, this is just not for me. And I was like doing terrible in the class after. So I had to withdraw like the last day before, it would affect your grade, right? You wouldn't get a grade. You just get a W for withdrawing. So I withdrew, and then I kind of didn't know what I was going to do for a few years. And then I found communications and social sciences and marketing, and that became my focus because I really love the study of people and the study of human behavior and interacting with others, and that became my passion. And so I think looking back now, I've put that all together, and that served me very well throughout my life. But if you had asked me when I was a kid, I never would have been able to point to that.
Yeah. Well, let's dig a little deeper into your childhood. Talk to me a little bit of how, you're obviously in the profession of giving and helping others, and that takes a lot out of you. So how did these seeds get in you from your childhood? How did these things begin and grow into who you are today?
I love that question because we're all a product of our upbringing and our childhood and everything. And for me, that heart of service was something that was ingrained in me from my parents, especially my father, from a very young age. He had been in a monastery for 14 years before he left that and became, got married and started a family. And so he always wanted to help and serve others, and family was just so important to him. And so even part of it was that, our faith was very strong, service was very strong, in our family. And then the second part is that we didn't have a lot. So I had to, we went to a private Catholic school, and in order to, help offset our tuition, we had to work at the school. I had to fold chairs and tables in the auditorium and put them away and do things like that to help, offset my education. And so work, and my father always instilled that, the value of hard work. That became ingrained in me also from a young age, the value of work and doing things for others. And so I think that's really where that comes from. And the last thing I'll say on that note is, on that topic, is that I learned at a very young age that the thing that, when you give, I'm blanking on the saying, but the one who gives the gift is the one that, gets all the blessings, right? Is the one who's better to give than to receive. I learned that at such a young age because I learned how much reward you would get from helping others and from, being of service, that, how the good feelings you would get and the enjoyment that comes with that. And so I've never shied away from that because I know that secret that so many people don't even realize or understand. They look at helping someone else as a chore when you do that, you get all the blessings.
Who has been a consistent role model for you, somebody that you've looked up to or a hero?
I'd say when I was younger, it was my father. When I was younger, it was my father because, and I was blessed that he lived to be 96 and passed away in 2019. And so I had a long life to live with him, and he was my hero in many ways just because he was a great role model for me. And since then, I wouldn't say that I have a specific hero. I have different coaches that I've used over the years, many books. I've read, hundreds or thousands of books, and I'll take little parts from each of them to learn and to grow. But, so some of the great motivational guys and gurus like the Jim Rohns or the Les Browns, and their work has always resonated with me.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet, spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Anybody alive? I would say, well, I would have said, like Mother Teresa, but she's not around anymore. But someone that's just given a lot, like has served a lot, like the Dalai Lama, or someone that has just given, their whole life to serving others, just to learn from them.
Absolutely. So, every day you go out and you do your work and you have these goals and agendas, and the alarm clock goes off and you're running. What is it that motivates you? What is it that gets you through that day that makes you want to do the work that you do?
I'm very intrinsically motivated, so I'm not someone that needs a carrot dangling out there to get me going in the morning. I wake up at 3:30 every day, oftentimes without the alarm, just because I love what I do. And I'd say just the love of building iSpark Change, the love of coaching others, that's what drives me on a daily basis, is just helping others and wanting to have more impact. Our goal at iSpark Change from the day we launch our social media platform, which will hopefully come out later this year, is to impact 1 billion lives on this planet. And so that's a big goal, and that drives me to keep moving forward.
So at the end of that day, how do you look back and quantify it and say that was a good day?
I begin and end every day by journaling. And so I'll journal gratitude. I'll look at what my wins were for the day and the goals that I accomplished, and who I impacted throughout the day, and how did God bless me throughout the day. So there's a lot of different things that I'll journal, but they're all around, reflecting on the day.
Excellent. So let me ask you this, and this is something more about, being alive for a long time and acquiring wisdom. If you had a dream tonight and ran into like the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life, what would you tell that young version?
That's another great question. I would tell him, because it's funny because, when I coach others, I tell them that the best person that could coach you is your future self, because they would know you better than anyone, yourself 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And the advice I would give to my 20-year-old self would be to two things. One would be to create purpose in your life, because for many years I lived, I lived a good life. I was helping people. I was successful by, society's definition, but I wasn't creating that purpose. I wasn't living in that purpose that, I feel God has provided for me. And so I'd say to create that purpose and live in that purpose. And then the second part of it, which really goes hand in hand, is just to be present. Especially when I was a 20-year-old, I was always in a hurry. I talked about when I was in school, I just wanted to get out as fast as I could and get a job and start making money, and, go through life. And I would just savor every moment more, just being more present in the moment. And I do, I enjoy life and I enjoy every experience. I would just say to just savor that just, 100 times greater.
So at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? My family, my kids, that I have. I have three beautiful daughters who are all now grown, and they are all thriving. They're doing well. They all are thriving and in relationships and happy and living amazing lives and looking at them and saying, and my marriage, because my wife and I will be married 27 years this June, and just looking at all of that with the family and saying, hey, we did a good job. I did a good job, had, for whatever my shortcomings are, I did very well there with my family.
So everyone out there has this perception or an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think it's interesting because that's something that I even have in my goals is, my perception is that I'm a family focused individual, which I already, talked about, that I'm spiritual, that I'm loving, I'm a giving and serving person. I mean, that's what I consider my purpose, to love and to give and to serve. And, and those are the main parts. I mean, I like to think that I'm kind and caring, and loyal, and hopefully others see me that way. And hopefully that's the image that I portray out to the world.
So what's been one of the best client responses, fan letters, anything from the work you've done in your life?
That's it. That's the easiest question I can answer, because when I first started iSpark Change, I was doing a lot of interviews and things, and I was interviewed by a Christian radio station out of Ireland, Spirit Radio Network, and I was sharing the journey I had been through in writing my book and really feeling called by God and feeling very spiritually connected with God to create iSpark Change. And I shared all this on a early morning, Saturday morning, not early for them, but very early for me, Saturday morning radio interview. And later the host of the show, she sent me a screenshot of a text that had come into the station. And it was from a young mother that was listening that morning and had heard me speak and said that she was very inspired. And I talked about purpose like I did just a few minutes ago, and that day. And she shared that earlier that week she was contemplating taking her own life because she was depressed, postpartum depression, and she was struggling, and that she had prayed for God to give her purpose. And then she said that hearing me speak about purpose while she was sitting there nursing her baby, she realized that her purpose was a mother, and and that she had to be there for her baby, and that she felt that she needs to live, right? That taking her own life wasn't a good idea, and that she had a purpose in this world, and that God gave her clarity of what that purpose was. And in listening to me speak, that's how she realized that. And so hearing that story, and luckily I heard that very early on in my journey with iSpark Change, just after a few months of creating it, hearing that very early in my journey let me know that even if I think no one is ever listening, I still have to keep doing the work, because I never know who it's going to impact in a positive way like it did for that young mother.
Wow, that's a great story. So, Rick, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, get your book, hire you, anything revolving around your world, where do they go?
They would go to www.isparkchange. That's just the letter I and then sparkchange.com. They'll find out about me there. They can go to rickornelas.com, but there's a link on iSpark Change. And we also have very active social media, so we're iSpark Change on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, TikTok, on any platform. They can find iSpark Change. Instagram's our busiest platform, where we have daily motivation, inspiration, lots of great content, where they can learn more about iSpark Change and our future platform and everything we're doing to impact the world.
Rick, this has been great, man. What a triumphant story. Thank you for opening up and giving me your time and story, and best of luck with everything.
You're very, very welcome. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and so much more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.